This thing here is the DJI Avata. Moving over, however, this guy holding it is me. I personally like to think of myself as a DIYer, but being realistic here, I'm not sure I quite live up to that title just yet, so when I had the idea to modify my Avata, I really didn't know what was actually achievable. I'm also pretty sure that some of you out there might be similar to me in that aspect. So in an attempt to flip the switch on this mind block, I've decided to change the wording from modifying my Avata to blinging the shit out of it. It's just so much more reasonable and sounds like something that I could actually achieve, hopefully meaning that you can achieve it too, right? So let's start off with a little bit of problem solving for bling out number 1. Apparently, a pretty common problem that a whole bunch of people face when crashing the Avata is that this battery here just ejects on out. And I've personally only ever had this happen twice. The first of which was actually when I hit a vine and then proceeded to hit solid concrete. So I'm not really surprised it came out. But the second time was surprisingly testing out one of today's upgrades. About a week ago, I went around looking online and found this little clip that, once 3D printed out, should solve the battery ejecting issue. So I had my friend 3D resin printed out, and then when I went to fit it, I found that it actually had 2 tabs that were stopping it from going into the mounting holes. I ended up needing to actually file off each of those tabs flat. After my slight modification, the legs do in fact fit in there, which, hey, it makes for a really solid attachment. Unfortunately, the major issue that I ran into here is that this little plastic piece doesn't quite do its job as intended. You see, I actually printed out 2 of these identical pieces, and this one right here, yeah, this is the second piece. The first is laying somewhere in a paddock after it ejected itself and the battery during a crash. Yeah, I'm not kidding. The battery wasn't completely ejected, but it was ejected enough that there was a battery connection error and the motors would not arm. So instead of this, the not so blingy but much more practical option is to use 2 battery straps. Simply just strap the 2 together and then pop them through the frame like this, and it's essentially like strapping the battery in on any other FPV drone. There's no way, no chance that this here is ever going to come out now. So I will give this a bling rating of 1 out of 10, but a functionality rating of 6 because it is actually useful. Alright, bling bling 2, the GoPro mount. If you've seen any of my other videos on the Avata, you know that I'm a massive fan of the convenience and quality factors of the O3 camera unit. So why the heck am I suggesting that you upgrade your Avata by slapping a big old GoPro on it? Aside from the fact that more really is more when you're blinging something out, I do also honestly believe that the GoPro has its place with its improved video quality. So for times when you really need the absolute top of the line video footage, it's going to be the way to go. Again, I had a part 3D resin printed for me by my friend. Thankfully, it fit perfectly straight off of the printer, but it does also have a little bit of a different installation process rather than just clipping on. First, you have to remove the 2 hex screws on either side here, then slide your mount over the top, kind of clips in, and then you'll need to install 2 M2 screws that are 8mm in length. That's instead of the original 4mm, so you will need to source those yourself as well. Once installed, you can simply just attach a GoPro to it and get to flying. The difference in the quality is definitely more apparent when flying in more difficult lighting situations like sunrise or sunset, and it also tends to handle auto exposure a whole lot cleaner if you tend to be flying inside or outside of a house or something like that. With all this being said, it's not an upgrade that I'm actually going to be using on every single flight. It'll honestly only be select ones where I'm really striving for the best footage outcome. My reasoning behind this though is because it absolutely slaughters your battery life and the performance. As an example here, going full throttle simply doesn't do too much when it's carrying a GoPro, and I really doubt that you're actually going to want to attempt anything like even remotely close to a dive, because you're most likely going to end up meeting the ground. For slow cinewhoop flying, however, it's a beast and at least gives the option of using the industry standard for video capture. So with all that in mind, the mount gets a bling rating of 7 because, I don't know, a GoPro had some spinny style points, and a functionality rating of 8. Okay, bling out 3, new props. So the Avata normally comes with these 5-bladed props, all of which work well and they work as intended, but if you somehow manage to mess up the protector propellers, you would be needing to look at buying an exact replacement for 21 New Zealand dollars. Yeah, stupidly expensive for 4 propellers when the majority of propellers on the market are around 5 New Zealand dollars. Hence why this upgrade could actually save you money in the long term. HQ Prop sells both 5-blade and 4-blade propellers for a quarter of the price at $579. Much more reasonable in my opinion. Instead of buying a direct replacement, I actually opted for the 4-blade propellers in hopes that they might offer some real-world perks. I'm not too sure how much I believe all of the numbers, but I'm gonna quote it from Master Airscrew's official site, which is the only site to actually have some information on why a 4-blade prop might be better on the Avata. Firstly, a top speed increase of 15%, 0 to 60 miles per hour, which is about 100 kilometers an hour in under 3 seconds, a 20% improved response rate, a 2% improvement in durability, and sound power reduction with a more pleasant sound signature. I feel like the last wording there is a fancy way of saying the sound might have changed a little bit and we hope you like it. I actually don't know. I just really want to put each of these to the test and then show you the results. So there's only one way to tackle this, and that's by heading outside. Firstly, we're going to try and use these stock DJI 5-blade props and try and see how fast we can get it to go from 0 to 100. Now let's see what we can get for a general top speed. I'm also going to try and get a really good feel for the punchiness and responsiveness of these propellers. Then finally, let's do a rough sound test at 3 meters away, just hovering. Alright, so I've swapped out the props to the HQ Props 4-bladers, and we're going to run the exact same test, see how that goes for us. Firstly, the 0 to 100 speed test. Now let's go for the top speed. I'm hoping to see a new speed of 115 kilometers here, as that would be on par with the 15% more advertised by Master Airscrew. Next, if I try my best to compare with the responsiveness, I'll do a bit of light freestyle. Our final test is the sound from 3 meters away. Putting each of these side by side, we come out with the following unofficial results. Firstly, neither props got us to 100 kilometers an hour, so I had to settle with a 0 to 80 test. DJI's 0 to 80 took 3.06 seconds, while HQ's took 2.38 seconds. DJI's top speed was 89.3 kilometers, while HQ's was 88.9 kilometers. The responsiveness is honestly such an unnoticeable difference, I really can't compare them too well, but I'm just going to roll it out as a draw. Then finally, this is DJI's prop sound, and this is HQ's prop sound. So yeah, to me, it's starting to seem like maybe HQ Props 4-bladers aren't designed to have any differences, and if that's the case, it would actually be worth putting Master Airscrew's hella expensive 4-bladers to the test. The biggest upside that HQ Props offers over the DJI props is simply affordability with seemingly no drawbacks. Both props still give you mad prop wash, and both props still do the flippy shit. So bling score of 3 for me, and functionality of 4. Moving on to Bling 4, we are actually taking a step back from the drone itself for a moment and moving to the controls. If you bought an Avata combo kit, you would have gotten one of the 2 motion controllers, which a lot of people shit on, but I actually think are a lot of fun. Regardless of what other people's opinions are on them, the next step for you to take your Avata experience up a level is to use the Remote 2. I seriously believe that this is the best route forwards to progressing your FPV journey, and that's true whether you plan to move over to manual mode or not. The general usage of the Remote 2 in its normal and sport modes are so much more precise and user controllable when compared with the motion controllers. Of course, the big plus to upgrading to the Remote 2 is the fact that you can eventually give the manual mode a shot as well. That's something that I would recommend that everyone tries out at some point with their time with the Avata. Like, it's not going to be easy if it's your first manual flight, but it might just be one of the safest ways to learn with the additional safety features. The Remote is on the pricier side of things, but in my opinion, it's a necessary upgrade coming in at 270 New Zealand dollars. But why is it a Bling upgrade, you may be wondering? Well, it depends on what you want to be holding. This or this. I'll personally take this one, thanks. So Bling status 5, functionality 9. Alrighty, Blingo number 5 moves us over to the goggles. A big pain point of the standard DJI straps with the goggles too is the fact that the battery just hangs off your head and kind of gets tossed in your pocket or somewhere like that. This has recently been fixed as such by the Goggles Integra, which got an entire video on, but still obviously remains an issue for the Goggles 2 users like myself. Whenever you're flying, you always have to make sure that the cable won't get in your way, and you also have to make sure you're not going to catch it on anything, pulling the plug out mid-flight. I'm sure that you can imagine what that would feel like, and let me tell you, it just wouldn't be ideal. So, this Ethics HD strap is the godsend that I've been waiting for, as it for one adds a pop of color, which, hey, it's a nice bit of bling to your setup, but the main feature here is actually this little grippy pouch. This is where your goggles battery sits and stays while you're flying, keeping your pockets a whole lot more free and, greatly reducing the risk of tugging this cable. I'd love to see a short cable too, but for now, this is still a massive upgrade from stock, so I'm pretty damn happy. I'd give this pop of color a bling rating of 6, and the functionality being a 7. Bling Out 6 is also on the goggles too. This upgrade can be for both Goggles 2 and Integra users, however, do be warned that this is definitely not for everybody. The standard face padding that comes with the goggles is generally speaking not crazy comfortable, and it does have minor light leaks from certain parts. This of course depends on your face shape, so if it's something that you do notice and it affects you negatively, you might want to look at getting an alternative foam padding like the iFlight one. For me, it does cut out the remaining light leaks and provides a very sealed experience. Annoyingly, however, this is the one upgrade that I'm not going to be keeping on, as I actually think the thickness of this foam is really subpar. I'd much rather put up with the minor light leaks from DJI's padding than have to use this foam. That being said, there are some super positive reviews out there, so that means that maybe this might be for you and it might work an absolute gem. But for me, it sucks. So you're just gonna get my personal rating here. For me, bling status 1, functionality 2. Going back to the Avata now, we're actually greeted with a pop of color for bling number 7. The theory behind these bumper savers, or ballerina dress for, lack of better words, is that when hitting a wall or a tree, some of the impact's going to be taken up by the soft TPU plastic, hopefully meaning that you're less likely to break the frame of your drone. It also means that if for some reason you're flying close to people or yourself and you do manage to smack somebody, it might actually hurt a little bit less. Obviously that's going to depend on what speed you're going, but hey, maybe don't be flying close to people unless they're your friends, in which case it might be ever so slightly funny to, tap them with the drone, or maybe not. You didn't hear that from me. Anyways, another dependable factor for the bling out is the color that you actually choose to either print or buy these in. If you're constantly crashing and struggling to find your drone, you may want to consider getting an intense color like these pink ones, or maybe even a fluorescent orange. That way, when it crash lands somewhere, it should, in theory, be easier to spot. If you do want to stick to looking more sleek though, you could for sure still get these done in black, and I don't know, it'll match up pretty well. This was made by another friend of mine who could print TPU, and I specifically asked for the pink just so I could rate the bling status 10 out of 10 and offer a functionality rating of 5. Alright, bling number 8 happens to be these little guys. If you have no idea what these are called ND filters, and they basically help take your footage from looking like this to looking like this. So if you plan on skipping out of the GoPro upgrade and want to solely use the O3 camera system, these are, in my opinion, an essential upgrade. If you're unaware of what exactly these do, think of them like sunglasses for your camera. When you don't have them on, you have to make your shutter speed a whole lot faster, which takes out any motion blur. Putting an ND filter over the camera stops a certain amount of light getting in, meaning that you can open your shutter back up and bring that motion blur back into your videos. The general rule of thumb for motion blur is double the shutter speed to the frame rate that you're choosing to fly with. For example, I fly at 30 frames per second, meaning that the optimal place for my shutter speed is 1/60. If you're wanting to slow your footage down in the editing suite, however, and we're shooting at 60 frames per second, you'd be wanting to have your shutter at 1/120th. It may sound a bit technical at first, but look, trust me, once you wrap your head around it, it's going to simply come naturally to you. I will admit here, these are a tad pricey for what they are, but they are also very comparable to the prices of other competitors in the market, coming in at 109 New Zealand dollars. Bling status 5 because it kind of looks like you're tinting out your camera, and functionality 10. They really do make a world of difference. So just like that, you've taken your entire DJI Avata experience from this standard look to a blinged out banger. All links are down in the description box below if you're ready to bling yours out, and if you want to find out whether the DJI Integra goggles are a better buy than the goggles too, you can watch that video here. See you soon.